In production, there will be times when your boss or your client is going to ask you to retime your animation, regardless of which phase of animation you're in. And if it hasn't happened to you yet, it will. So in this video, I'm going to teach you two methods to adjust the timing of your animation in as painless a way as possible. Here we have a scene I worked on about 5 years ago. And it's complete, but just for fun, let's say that my boss comes up to me and says, hey, we want you to make certain sections of this faster. And I say, sure, no problem, boss. I come in here, I grab all my controls, and shit. I have a key on almost every single frame. It's the end of the animation. I've been putting keys everywhere. And if I go into my graph editor, I could try to read it through here, but I'm not fluent in spaghetti. So one thing we can use is something called the dope sheet. And to get to the dope sheet, you can either go to Windows, Animation Editor, dope sheet right here, or if you have your graph editor currently open, you can click this little button in the top right corner. And when you open it up, it's going to be largely blank, but if you select one of your controls, you'll see your control appear on the left-hand side, and it'll put a black box on every frame where you have a key. If you select all your controls, then it will show every key on every control. At the top here is this blue bar that will put a black box on every frame that has a key on any control. So how does this help us? Well, if you notice, there are certain gaps here where there's no keyframe at all. And more importantly, the big advantage of the dope sheet is these large black bars in the middle where it goes all the way down. These are your key poses, the ones you made back when you first did your stepped animation. So yes, during the animation process, you may offset a key here and there on a control, or you might do some other keys to build your curves. But largely, your key poses are going to still be on the same points. So what you can do here is you can marquee select all the keys on the top bar, see, oh, look, I have an extra frame here, and you can slide your animation over and shift your animation without actually breaking your animation in general. So, or if you have a keyframe where only 3 controls have a key on it, you can be like, oh, shoot, I have a little extra space here. If I shift everything over, I'm not going to disrupt what's happening on those 3 controls, but I still save myself a little bit of time. Or you can identify areas where, okay, here's my 2 key poses here and here. I can find generally the middle section of it, extend it outward, and I can still maintain my eases. The other option you have is the Retime Tool. So let's say my boss comes up to me and says, we want you to speed up this section around here. What we can do is we can go into our graph editor, turn on the Retime Tool, which is represented by these 3 vertical bars in the top left corner. And when you click on it, nothing happens. But if we go to our start of the gesture and double click in the graph editor, it creates a solid yellow bar. Now, if we move this around, it moves around the entire animation. But if we put down a second bar at the end of the gesture, it creates an animation segment. Now when I move this bar around, it scales the animation in between the 2 bars and then offsets the animation that comes before it. Now this doesn't help us because we don't want to affect the timing of the rest of our animation. So what we can do is treat it like motion capture, where we set down 0 keys. So what I'll do is I'll find a key pose that happens before the gesture, put down a bar, find a key pose that happens after the gesture, put down a bar. Now when I move these around, it scales the animation before and after the bar, while leaving the rest of our animation completely intact. Another cool thing is you can move around entire animation segments by clicking and dragging the bars on top. So if I move this around, you can see it offsets the animation in the segment and scales the animation that happens before and after it. The big disadvantage with this tool is it does not respect whole frames. Because it's scaling things back and forth, it just kind of plants the keyframes wherever. So you will have a lot of sub-keys. And I personally don't like that. I like to keep my animation on keys because I want my key poses to be my key poses. But if you're working in motion capture, this is an extremely useful tool. And the really cool thing about it, this exact tool also exists in Motion Builder and works the exact same way. So these are 2 ways to help you preserve your performance and retime your animation. I hope you enjoy it and have fun with it.